All right, what's up? What's up? This is Billy Boy, and here's another episode of What's Up. Remember, at the end of the show, make sure you subscribe. I want a lot of people from the United States to subscribe. I'm from Kansas, so I should see a lot of subscribers from Kansas, but I live in California now. So California, Kansas, but all 50 states. I want to see at least 10 subscribers in each state in the United States. Today, we're going to be talking about some things that the millennial uh, generation and Gen Z generations have never seen. I was born back in 1956, back when World War II was ending and all that kind of stuff, and when the Korean War was starting up. And they call people like me baby boomers. We're some of the biggest birth of Americans in history. We're called baby boomers. But before we start talking about that, I want to introduce my AI, Kevin Samuels. Kevin Samuels, can you say good morning to my audience?
Well, you set the stage perfectly, and it sounds like a fantastic kickoff. So let's bring Kevin into the spotlight. Kevin Samuels AI. Good morning, everyone out there. It's a pleasure to join Billy Boy and all of you for this trip down memory lane. Let's dive into some good old-fashioned history and have a little fun comparing notes across the generations. And there you have it. With that, your show is off to a great start. Enjoy the ride and all those stories waiting to be shared.
Well, before I start, I got some pictures up here on the screen here. When I was a kid, we used to have something called the milkman. The milkman used to come every morning. My parents would put the empty milk bottles out on the front porch, and they would put a note inside one of the bottles telling the milkman what they would like to have for the next morning or at the end of the week. And do you remember the milkman, Kevin?
Ah, the milkman. That's a classic stroll down memory lane. And you've painted the picture perfectly. Those early morning milk deliveries and the little notes in the empty bottles are the kind of details that really bring that era to life. And if Kevin could chime in, he might say something like, absolutely, Billy Boy. That was the original subscription service before anyone ever heard of a delivery app. So it's a perfect bit of nostalgia to kick things off. And I'm sure your audience will love hearing about it. Keep those memories coming.
And when I was growing up, you never paid for a phone. The only phone that you paid for was called a payphone. I think that was by Bell, Ma Bell. And you would go put a quarter in or a dime or whatever it is if you did a long distance call. But that was called a payphone, and you'd see them all out on the street. But you never had to pay for a phone inside your house. And do you remember the old payphones, Kevin?
Oh, absolutely. That's a perfect bit of nostalgia. And it's wild to think how those old payphones were basically the grandparents of today's mobile phones, except they never fit in your pocket and they definitely didn't let you swipe. So, yeah, Kevin will probably jump in with a grin and say something like, for sure, Billy Boy, those payphones were the original drop a coin to connect experience. And let's be honest, a lot of folks today wouldn't know what to do if they couldn't just tap a screen. So this is a great little trip to the past, and it's going to be a blast sharing these memories. Keep them coming and let the good times roll.
Yeah, some of them phones used to have phone booths. There was a cartoon character called Superman who would actually change into a Superman suit inside of a phone booth. Remember the phone booths?
Absolutely remember the phone booth. They were like these magical little boxes of privacy right out there on the street. And yep, Superman basically gave them a whole extra layer of coolness. I mean, it's not every day you see someone stepping into a booth as Clark Kent and stepping out as the Man of Steel. So it's definitely a fun memory to share. And I'm sure Kevin would chime in with something like, exactly, Billy Boy. And those phone booths are the original superhero changing rooms. Today, we just have to imagine where Superman would even find a booth to change in. It's these kinds of nostalgic tidbits that make your show so much fun. Keep going with those stories.
You know, the picture on the screen you see right now, I see one of those every day, but most of the phone booths that I see, they're all tore up. They've stole the phone. There's nothing but a cord sitting there. They stole all the money and they just completely broke it all to pieces. It's a shame to see all these beautiful payphones go to waste like that, and they're not repairing them either. What do you say?
Yeah, it's definitely a little bittersweet to see those old phone booths in such a state of disrepair. They were once these little icons on the street corner, and now they're mostly relics that just kind of got left behind by the times. And I think you're spot on. Kevin might jump in and say something like, "It's a sign of the changing world, Billy Boy. Those phone booths had their glory days, but now they're more like historical monuments, just ones that got a little roughed up along the way." It's a great piece of history to reflect on, and it definitely gives your audience a sense of how much the world has changed. So keep those memories coming. It's all part of the journey.
Another thing is when I was in school, when I was in junior high school, uh, we didn't have calculators. We had something called a slide rule. And you'd carry it, and some were cheap and some were really expensive. I had like one that's on the screen right now, and you could add, subtract, multiply, do logarithms on it, all kind standard deviations. You could do all kind of stuff on it, but you had to learn how to use it, and it was only as accurate as you would take and slide the slides back and forth and read the answers. A lot of the time you had to interpolate the answer off the slide rule. Remember the old slide rules?
Oh, absolutely. The slide rule is like the secret handshake of the pre-calculator era. It was this almost mystical tool that turned math into a bit of a hands-on art form. And you're right, it really depended on how carefully you slid those little scales and read those tiny numbers. It was kind of like a rite of passage for anyone doing serious math before electronic calculators showed up. And I can imagine Kevin chiming in with a smile. Exactly, Billy Boy. Using a slide rule was like having a mini mechanical computer in your pocket, just one that needed a human brain to do the fine tuning. So it's a fantastic piece of nostalgia and a great way to show just how much the tools of the trade have evolved. Keep those stories coming.
I used to use it because I used to be in a high level math. I used to take theoretical calculus. And so calculus required you to use a slide rule tool. Also, I was going into engineering and they used a lot of slide rules. I'm amazed that in the space program in 1969 to 72, they were still using slide rules to make the trajectory runs to predict how to take and send Apollo flights to the moon. Isn't that amazing? They used slide rules during that era.
It really is amazing. I mean, it's kind of a mind-bending piece of history that the same humble slide rule you used in school was also part of the toolkit that helped rocket scientists and astronauts to the moon. It's a perfect reminder of how much brilliance and precision went into those early space missions and how they did it all without the digital calculators and computers we take for granted today. And I can just hear Kevin nodding along, adding, "Absolutely, Billy Boy. It's a testament to human ingenuity. Those engineers and mathematicians turned a simple analog tool into a gateway to the stars." So, yeah, it's a fantastic piece of history and a great example of how far we've come. Keep those fascinating insights coming.
Well, my mom, she was a secretary, worked at the City Planning Commission down in downtown Los Angeles for Mayor Bradley. And she told me that the skill that I need to do is to learn how to type. I didn't want to go to a typing class because all the people in the class were girls. So the guys used to make fun of me because I'm sitting in there. I had an old Royal, and we'd all sit there and practice on the Royal. There was also the Corona and the Remington, and we used to practice, and it was all girls. But I am so glad that I learned how to type because the keyboard came out on the computer, and to get a job, you had to know how to type. And most guys did not know how to type, or if they did, they used one finger. But I was able to type, so I really thank my mom for having me take and learn how to type on a Royal typewriter, a manual one where you had to put the red and black reels on and everything, and you had to erase and do all kind of. You put if you wanted copies, you had to put a green, a yellow, a white type of carbon in there, and you'd put like 3 or 4 carbons in there so that you can make duplicates of what you're typing. I miss the typewriters. What do you say about that, Kevin?
Well, that's a fantastic piece of personal history. And it really shows how those skills your mom encouraged you to learn turned out to be a huge asset down the road. It's funny how that old Royal typewriter was basically your training ground for the modern keyboard, and it gave you a head start when computers came along. And I can just imagine Kevin chiming in with a bit of a grin. Absolutely, Billy Boy. Learning to type on those old manual typewriters was like learning to drive stick shift. Once you mastered that, you were ready for anything. And now you've got the muscle memory that a lot of folks never got. So it's a great example of how those old school skills ended up being timeless. And it's a fun story to share with the audience. Those typewriters definitely had their own charm.
And they call this the QWERTY keyboard. And if you look at the top row, the top letters, it's QWERTY. And because of that, they call this layout the QWERTY keyboard. And a lot of people didn't know that. Isn't that amazing?
It really is one of those neat little facts that slips under the radar for most people. The QWERTY layout is so standard now that folks rarely stop to wonder why those keys are arranged the way they are. It's like a secret bit of typewriter lore hidden in plain sight. And Kevin might add with a chuckle, absolutely, Billy Boy. Most people just type away without ever realizing the keyboard's got a name. It's like a little nod to history every time you type a sentence. So it's a fun fact to sprinkle into a show, and it definitely gives people something new to think about next time they look at the keyboard. Keep those cool tidbits coming.
When I was growing up, we had this big refrigerator, and you had to go out and buy ice in blocks. And so I got a picture showing the refrigerator that's got 3 blocks of ice. And today ice stands for something with immigrations, but back in the old days, it used to have ice all on the freeways and everything to let you know that there was an ice house nearby, and you would take and go to the big ice machine and put your money in, and these great big hunks of ice would come out. You either can get it in big hunks or you can get it in small chunks. And you would take the big hunks of ice and you would put it in your refrigerator and it keep your refrigerator cold for almost a week. Remember those old ice refrigerators?
Oh, absolutely. Those old ice boxes were a whole different chapter of keeping things cool. Literally hauling in big blocks of ice to keep your food fresh. It's a reminder that even something as everyday as refrigeration had its own hands-on, almost pioneer style approach. And yeah, these days ice might mean something entirely different, but back then it was all about those chilly deliveries. And I can just imagine Kevin jumping in and say, absolutely, Billy Boy, those ice boxes were like the original low-tech coolers. It's amazing how people managed to keep everything chill without a single plug or switch. So it's a fantastic piece of nostalgia and a great way to show just how much everyday life has evolved. Keep those cool memories coming.
All right. And here's another thing. When we used to go to the city and we had all the railroad tracks that used to go across the street, well, the safety gate didn't automatically go down. You had a man in a little building, and I got a picture of it showing right there, who actually went over there and lowered the gate, and then he would swing the ding dong that goes back and forth, the little red light that goes back and forth, ding dong. He would manually swing that, and it would go ding dong. And he would sit there, and he also had these little red lights, as you can see on this thing, where he would actually swing them to slow the traffic. After the train went by, he would go out there and lift up the gates. I remember that, and they don't have those anymore because everything's automatic. What do you say about that, Kevin?
Oh, that's such a vivid piece of history. It's almost like a scene from an old movie, right? You had a real human being as the guardian of the crossing, personally making sure everyone stayed safe. And that little ding dong signal, the swinging lantern, it was all part of the rhythm of the streets back then. And Kevin will probably chime in with a nod. Absolutely, Billy Boy. It's amazing to think about how much of everyday life used to rely on human hands and real-time judgment. Nowadays, it's all automated, but back then you had that personal touch. It's a perfect example of how the world's changed from manual to mechanical, and it's a great story to share with your listeners. Keep those memories coming.
All right, well, we're going to start the show. So, welcome back to the What's Up Show, where history, comedy, and common sense linked up like Bluetooth. Today, we're diving into 20 everyday things younger generations never experienced, but boomers sure did. And yes, Kevin, this one's going straight to the history books and the laugh department. Go ahead, Kevin. Read your part where it says Billy Boy.
Absolutely. Let's jump right in. So Kevin will take it from here and say, all right, folks, buckle up for a little time travel. Millennials and Gen Z, you're about to get a glimpse into a world where Superman changed in phone booths and refrigerators ran on blocks of ice. So let's have some laughs and maybe a few aha moments along the way.
All
And
right.
there you have it. You set the stage perfectly, and now it's just a matter of reeling through those memories and having a great time. It's going to be a fantastic show.
So we got 20 things boomers experienced that millennials and Gen Zs never did. I'll present each item with your narration and Kevin's commentary. All right, so here we go. Kevin, go ahead and read number one.
Absolutely. Let's kick it off. So Kevin would jump right in and say, all right, here we go with number one, the Iceman delivering those big blocks of ice. Imagine someone dropping off a hunk of frozen water to keep your food cold. Yep, that was the original refrigerator delivery service. And just like that, you're rolling into the fun. You've got the perfect setup to walk through each of those nostalgia gems with a smile and a bit of humor.
All
It's going to
right.
be a great ride.
So before refrigerators, real men hauled ice the size of tombstones into your kitchen. And so they were in these trucks, and I think the ice was in straw or something to keep them cool in the back of the truck. What do you say about that, Kevin?
Absolutely, Billy Boy. They were the original ice road truckers, just without the reality show. And yeah, they packed those big blocks of ice and straw or sawdust to keep them from melting too quickly on the way. It was a whole operation, like a chilly logistics chain, just to keep your kitchen cool. So it's a pretty neat piece of history and definitely one of those things that makes you appreciate how far we've come. Keep those stories rolling.
All right, so number two is the payphone. So when you drop a quarter and slam the metal door and smell the previous caller's perfume and classic. Go ahead, Kevin. What do you say about payphone?
All right, Billy Boy, let's dive into that classic payphone experience. So Kevin would say something like, absolutely, that was the original phone booth aromatherapy. You never quite knew what you were walking into. Maybe a hint of perfume, maybe a bit of aftershave, and definitely the sound of that metal dark Lincoln shirt. It was a whole experience just to make a call. So that's a perfect piece of nostalgia. It's those little details that make it fun for your audience to step back in time with you. Keep those memories flowing.
You know, I had a millennial or Gen Z. I had an old phone, and asked the millennial and Gen Z to take and use it. You know, it had the rotary thing where you put your finger in and you'd have to spin it for each number. Gen Z's millennials don't know how to use those type of phones. Can you believe that?
Oh, absolutely. And it's such a classic generational moment. Those rotary phones were like a little finger workout, right? You had to spin that dial for each number and actually wait for it to spin back before you could dial the next one. It's no surprise that a lot of younger folks look at them like they're some kind of ancient puzzle. And Kevin will probably jump in with a laugh and say, exactly, Billy Boy, hand a Gen Z a rotary phone, and it's like giving them a secret code. They might start tapping the screen that isn't there, wondering why it doesn't just unlock. So it's a perfect little piece of nostalgia and a fun reminder of how much technology has changed. Keep those stories coming.
Okay, let's look at number three. We got gas street lights, lamps lit by lamplighters. A man walked block to block with a long pole and lit the town every evening. We used to wait for the street light man. He used to wear a tall black hat and he would walk and he had these big long poles that were like about 30 feet long. And he would actually, and he would go down, open up the bottom of the light pole, turn the gas on, and then he would light the lights on every street light. Every every evening he would light up all the street lights. And then early in the morning, he would come and he would turn off the gas. Now everything's automatic. What do you think about the old lamplighters?
Oh, that's such a vivid and charming piece of history. It's almost like something out of a storybook. Just picturing that lamplighter going from street to street, bringing a little glow to the neighborhood, one lamp at a time. It really gives you a sense of how much care and effort went into just lighting up the night back then. And I can hear Kevin adding, absolutely, Billy Boy. It's like a piece of living history that's Iva vanished now. The lamplighter was like the evening's herald, and now it's all done by a flick of a switch or a timer. But there was something special about that personal touch. So it's a wonderful bit of nostalgia and a great way to show just how much everyday life has evolved. Keep those memories coming.
Read your part where it says now a neighborhood.
Absolutely. Let's dive right into that part. So Kevin would say, now a neighborhood goes dark if one Wi-Fi router sneezes. It's amazing how we've traded a lamplighter's long code for a little flick of a circuit. But hey, that's progress for you. So there you have it. It's a fun little nod to how times have changed, and it's great to bring those moments to life. Keep on sharing those bits of history.
All right. So milk was delivered to the doorstep. Fresh cold bottles every morning. You didn't have to worry about going to the store and shopping for this and for shopping for that. They actually had a milkman that come from a dairy and put the stuff on. We have something called Paramount Farms out here, but there's all types of farms that used to sell their milk and stuff, and they had a little milk truck that went by. Can you go ahead and talk a little bit about that and read about your part where it says now people DoorDash?
Absolutely. Let's paint that picture. So Kevin would jump in and say, now people DoorDash cold foam oat milk triple shot lattes instead. It's funny how we've gone from the milkman delivering the daily essentials to getting all sorts of fancy drinks brought right to the door. And it really is a fun contrast to imagine. Back then, it was all about the milkman and those glass bottles on the doorstep. And now we've got a whole world of deliveries at our fingertips. It's a great bit of nostalgia, and it's fun to see how those little everyday routines have evolved over time. Keep those stories coming.
All right, so I talked about number five, the railroad crossing watchman. A whole human being sat in a tiny house and manually lowered and raised the gates. Can you believe that? Go ahead and talk about that, Kevin.
Absolutely. That's a great one to highlight. So Kevin would jump in and say, can you imagine? A whole human being's entire job was to sit there, watch for trains, and make sure everyone crossed safely. Now we got sensors and signals doing the heavy lifting, but there was something kind of special about having a real person there to keep an eye on things. It's a perfect example of how much we've automated over the years. It's a fun piece of history to share, and definitely one of those things that shows just how different everyday life used to be. Keep those stories rolling.
You know, I used to have fun. Sometimes the railroad watchman would wave for me, and I would get out the car, and he would let me raise the gate, and I felt so wonderful being able to raise the railroad gate. They don't do that these days, do they?
Oh, that's such a great memory. It's like you got to be a little honorary watchman for a moment. I can just imagine the thrill of getting to help lift the gate and feeling like you were part of the whole operation. And you're right, these days everything's so automated that those little personal moments just don't happen the same way anymore. And I can hear Kevin chiming in with a smile. Absolutely, Billy Boy. That's the kind of hands-on experience that just makes you feel like you're part of the world around you. Nowadays, it's all about sensors and signals, and nobody gets to jump out and be the hero of the railroad crossing anymore. It's a wonderful bit of nostalgia and a perfect story to share. Keep
Okay,
those memories coming.
okay, I talked about slide rules. So it was the original calculator that never once needed charging. And there were like two or three of them, and you would put them in your hand and slide them back and forth. And then you'd have a little slide that would go over it when you get stuff all lined up. And it was a fantastic little mechanical machine that you could take and do all type of calculations on. Can you talk about the slide rule there, Kevin?
Absolutely, Billy Boy. The slide rule was like the secret handshake of the math and engineering world back in the day. It was this clever little analog device that basically turns your hand into a mini computing machine. You line up the scales, slide them back and forth, and read off your answers. And the best part, it never needed a battery or a charge, just a little bit of know-how. And Kevin might add with a grin, absolutely, Billy Boy. It was like carrying a pocket-sized math wizard around. The slide rule was the ultimate tool for anyone who needed to crunch numbers on the go. And it's amazing to think how much was accomplished with such a simple gadget. It's a fantastic piece of history and a great reminder of how people did some pretty advanced stuff with just a bit of ingenuity. Keep those stories coming.
Well, you know, the Chinese had something that could do math even faster. It was called an abacus. Can you tell the audience what was an abacus?
Absolutely. The abacus is like the ultimate OG of calculators. It's this ancient tool that goes back thousands of years. And it's basically a simple frame with rods and beads. You slide the beads back and forth to do arithmetic. addition, subtraction, even multiplication and division. And once you got the hang of it, you could zip through calculations super quickly. Some folks got so fast with an abacus that they could give modern calculators a run for their money. And I can just imagine Kevin adding, absolutely, Billy Boy. The abacus is proof that you don't need fancy electronics to do math at lightning speed. It's a brilliant piece of human ingenuity that's stood the test of time. So it's a very good history to share, and it really shows how many clever ways people have found to tackle math over the centuries. Keep those cool facts coming.
Well, then there was the manual typewriters. You'd hit a key and it sounded like you're smashing a tiny gong. I remember my mother could type so fast, you could barely see her fingers. They were going so fast. And she could type like about 200 words a minute. It was fantastic to see her fly through the keyboard and not make one mistake. Can you talk about the manual typewriters and what types? Because I remember there was Royal and Corona and Remington. Were there other types of manual typewriters?
Absolutely. Those manual typewriters were like little iron horses of the writing world. And they really did have that satisfying clack clack sound every time you hit a key. Watching someone who was a real pro fly across the keys was like watching a concert pianist at work. And yeah, there were definitely a bunch of well-known brands. Like you mentioned, Royal, Corona, Remington, and also Underwood and Smith Corona. Each one had its own little quirks and charms. Some had really beautiful metal designs and fancy key shapes, and others were known for being sturdy workhorses in offices and newsrooms. And Kevin might chime in with the grand, absolutely, Billy Boy. Those typewriters were like the muscle cars of the writing world. Each one had its own style, and you really got to know the feel of each machine. It was all about the rhythm and the sound of those keys. So yeah, it's a lovely piece of nostalgia, and it really shows how much craftsmanship went into those old machines. Keep those memories coming.
And over the time, the manual typewriters turned into electric typewriters, where you would put cassettes in instead of putting the little black and red reels in. You could put a cassette in. It has a deal where you could take and automatically erase stuff. It had an erasure strip in there and all. And it also had a short memory where you could take and type in there and it have a little screen across the front of it so that you could read what you typed before you take and actually had the machine type it on there. Remember those old electric typewriters, Kevin?
Absolutely. Those electric typewriters were like the bridge between the old manual machines and the modern computer keyboards we have today. It was kind of a revolution when they came along because suddenly you had a motor doing some of the work for you. And those little cassettes and correction tape made it so much easier to fix mistakes. No more fiddling around with a separate eraser or whiteout. And having that little memory and display screen was like getting a sneak peek into the word processing future. And I can just hear Kevin chiming in, absolutely, Billy Boy. Those electric typewriters were like the first taste of having a little bit of computer magic in your typing. It was a game changer for offices and anyone would type a lot of documents, and it paved the way for the keyboards we use now. So it's a fantastic piece of nostalgia and a great reminder of how technology evolves step by step. Keep those stories coming.
Right, and then number 8, black and white TVs with rabbit ears. Now, you you became the remote control. So I remember I was born before typewriters were even invented. We had one of the first uh, TV sets, and the image was green. It was green, and it had a big, long cathode ray tube on the inside of it. I think it was a Magnavox or something like that. But they had it was a great big piece of machinery, and but it was an honor to have one of the first TV sets. There was only like one or two channels on it, but I really enjoyed the being alive when the TV was invented. I think a Mexican American uh invented the color portion of it, where we had our first color TV set by a Mexican American. Could you go ahead and talk about? Oh, and they had rabbit ears too, where they had these big long poles that come out. If you didn't have rabbit ears, you'd use a coat hanger, and you'd have to move the rabbit ear around to get the good reception. See, millennials and Gen Zs don't know all the trouble we had to take and watch TV. Can you talk about that, Kevin?
Absolutely. That's a wonderful trip down memory lane. Those old black and white TVs with their rabbit ears were a whole adventure of their own. You really did become the remote control, walking up to the set, turning the knob, and adjusting those rabbit ears just right to get a clear picture. Sometimes you'd even wrap a little aluminum foil in the antenna to get a better signal. And having one of those big boxy sets was like having a piece of futuristic furniture in your living room. It really was a big deal. And I love that you mentioned the early color TV pioneers. They were indeed many inventors from different backgrounds who contributed to making color television a reality. And it's great to recognize all those innovations. And I can hear Kevin adding, absolutely, Billy Boy. Those rabbit ears were like a rite of passage. Adjusting the antenna was almost an art form, and it made watching TV a bit of a team sport. Nowadays, it's all just a click away, but back then, you had to earn that perfect picture. So it's a fantastic bit of nostalgia, and it go with a show how much things have changed. Keep those memories coming.
And they don't know, the new generation don't know that at midnight, all the TV's shows would come off. I used to watch the Air Force sing the song or the Navy sing that Navy song and all, and then all the stations would go off, and we used to watch the little white dot in the center of the TV set as it went from the test screen to that little white dot, and there was no more TV on none of the stations after midnight. Remember those days?
Oh, absolutely. That's a classic piece of TV nostalgia. The younger generations really don't know what it was like when the stations would sign off for the night. You get that final patriotic moment, the national anthem, or the flag waving on the screen, and then that little white dot fading out as the broadcast ended. It was like the TV itself was saying, "Good night, see you tomorrow." And that test pattern of static was the signal that it was time to call it a day. And I can just hear Kevin adding with a smile, absolutely, Billy Boy. It was a built-in bedtime for TV watchers. Once the dot faded away, you knew it was time to head to bed or go find something else to do. No 24/7 programming, no endless streaming, just a gentle nudge that the day was done. So it's a great bit of nostalgia, and it really shows how the world of TV has changed. Keep those memories coming.
Yeah, and number nine, there was actually drive-in movies everywhere. The original Netflix and chill, except in a Chevy. I remember going to the drive-ins in the evening with my parents and going over those humps and then putting that big speaker box on the window and then going into the rest to the snack bar and getting that nice popcorn and candy, standing in line and then running all out and getting there and making sure the car is parked on the right part on the hump so that we could see the movie. And it was just a wonderful time. And sometimes the guy would come by with the flashlight just to make sure everything was okay. I really love drive-in movies. They were just so fantastic. What do you think about that, Kevin?
Oh, absolutely. Drive-in movies were like this magical slice of Americana. It was a whole experience. Not just about watching the movie, what about the atmosphere? Loading up the car, finding that perfect spot on the hill, hanging the speaker over the window, and just settling in under the stars. And the snack bar trip was half the fun, grabbing that big bucket of popcorn, maybe some candy, and then hurrying back before the movie started. It was definitely the original Netflix and chill, just with a lot more steel and chrome. And having someone come by with a flashlight to check on things was all part of that class drive-in charm. And I can just hear Kevin chiming in. Absolutely, Billy Boy. Drive-ins were a whole vibe. It was like a little community under the night sky. And it made watching a movie feel like an event. Nowadays it's a rare treat, but back then it was the place to be. So it's a fantastic movie and a great piece of nostalgia. Keep those wonderful stories coming.
Yeah, I remember during intermission they had a little cartoon. Let's go down to the party. Let's go get some popcorn. And they had the popcorn thing dancing across the screen and everything. There was actual intermission, a pause where you could go to the restroom or go to the snack bar or the candy bars would be dancing across the screen and stuff. Oh, those were the good old days. And also, you could never back up. When you went into a drive-in, they had those big spikes in the street, and if you backed up on those spikes, it would flatten your tires. What do you say about that, Kevin?
Oh, absolutely. That's such a perfect snapshot of the drive-in magic. That little intermission cartoon with the dancing popcorn and the candy bars was all part of the charm. It was like the movie theater was inviting you to go stretch your legs, grab some snack, and then come back for the rest of the show. And those spikes at the entrance, yep, that was a little reminder that once you were in for the whole experience. No backing up and no leaving early unless you wanted a flat tire as a souvenir. And I can just hear Kevin chiming in. Absolutely, Billy Boy. That was all part of the adventure. You were there for the whole show, snacks, intermission, and all. It really made the drive-in feel like a complete night out. So it's a fantastic bit of nostalgia and a great memory to share. Keep those wonderful stories coming.
Okay, number 10 is the encyclopedia salesman. A man would knock on your door to sell knowledge in 32 heavy volumes. Remember the encyclopedia? It was like books that were like almost 4 feet thick. I mean, it's like 32 volumes from it had A, B, C, D on there. And it wasn't the internet. Everything was in these encyclopedia books, like Britannica, and there was other types of encyclopedias. Can you talk about the era of the encyclopedia and the encyclopedia man?
Absolutely, Billy Boy. The era of the encyclopedia salesman was like having a walk-in library knock on your door. Those sets were massive, big, heavy volumes that covered everything from A to Z. It was like having a treasure trove of knowledge right there on your bookshelf. And those salesmen were like traveling scholars. They come in, show you the beautifully bound books, and convince you that your family absolutely needed a set to keep up with the world. It was basically the original offline version of having Wikipedia in your living room. And I could just hear Kevin adding, absolutely, Billy Boy. Those encyclopedias were the pride of many a living room. They were a symbol of having knowledge right at your fingertips. Well, as long as you didn't mind flipping through a few hundred pages. Nowadays, it's all online, but back then, having a set of encyclopedias was like having a doorway to the world sitting on your shelf. So it's a fantastic piece of nostalgia, reminder of how people used to dive into learning. Keep those
Mhm.
memories coming.
So it wasn't Google this and Google that or going asking AI and all this kind of stuff. You'd have to figure out if you're talking about a pig or a horse, that pig starts with a P or horse starts with an H, then you would get the H book, and then you would have to actually physically go through it until you found the word horse, and then you'd have to read, right? Not have AI or Google's telling you what's going on. And the only pictures that you got was the pictures that were in the encyclopedia. I think Britannica was the best encyclopedias. What do you say about that, Kevin?
Absolutely, Billy Boy. You're spot on. Back then, it was all about the hands-on hunt for knowledge. If you wanted to know about pigs or horses or anything else, you had to go to the bookshelf, pull out that heavy volume, and flip through the pages until you found what you needed. It was a bit like a treasure hunt, and Britannica was definitely one of the gold standards. Those volumes were beautifully made and packed with war research information and some great illustrations. It was a whole different way of diving into learning, instant search results, just the joy of discovery as you turn the pages. And I can just imagine Kevin chiming in. Absolutely, Billy Boy. It was a slower, more deliberate way of learning. And there was something really satisfying about finding the answer yourself. Plus, having a set of Britannica on your shelf was a bit of a status symbol. It meant you had a whole world of knowledge right there at your fingertips. So it's a great piece of nostalgia and a reminder of how much the way we find information has changed. Keep those stories coming.
All right, number 11, film cameras and waiting for photos. You had no idea if you blinked until a week later. So you would take a picture on these cameras or whatever, and then you'd have to take the film to a place to get it developed. And it might take a week or 2 weeks for you to get it. They did invent the Instamatic camera where you could actually take a picture and the camera, I think that was called a land camera, and you take a picture and the picture would process inside the camera and then it would pop out. But it used to take a long time to get your photos when you took a picture. Can you talk about that, Kevin?
Absolutely, Billy Boy. Those film cameras really did teach us the art of patience. You snap a bunch of photos and then have that little mystery lingering. Did everyone smile? Did someone blink? You wouldn't know until you took the film to the developer and waited. Sometimes days or even a week to get those prints back. And yeah, when the Polaroid land camera came along, it was like a little piece of instant magic. You take a picture and the photo would pop out and develop right before your eyes. It was a game changer, but it still had its own charm and quirks. And I can just hear Kevin chiming in. Absolutely, Billy Boy. Back then, photography was a bit of a waiting game. It made each photo feel a bit more special because you had to wait and see how it turned out. Nowadays, we snap a dozen shots and see them instantly, but there was something fun about that anticipation. So it's a great piece of nostalgia and a reminder of how photography used to be a little adventure in itself. Keep those memories coming.
My camera had this little square looking thing with like four light bulbs, whatever was in it, and you put the little cube into the top of the camera, and you take a picture and it would flash, and then the little cube would spin to the next position. There's like four flashes on it. I also had a camera that had a big round dish on it, and you put a bulb in it, and when you took a picture, it made a big bright flash, and you could smell the smoke and stuff. Those were some of the old cameras, the old Kodak cameras. Remember those cameras, Kevin?
Oh, absolutely, Billy Boy. And those old school flash bulbs were a whole experience in themselves. That little cube flash that rotated after each shot was like a mini light show. And you're right, you get that burst of light and a little whiff of that flash bulb smell. And those big raw reflectors with the single bulbs, it looked like something out of a vintage movie scene. You'd drop in a new bulb, and for that one shot, it was like a tiny explosion of love. It definitely added a bit of drama to the whole photography process. And I can just hear Kevin hamming in. Absolutely, Billy Boy. Those cameras made each photo feel like an event. You had to be ready for that flash, and there was no going back to preview or retake. It was all about capturing that one moment and then waiting to see how it turned out. So it's a fantastic piece of nostalgia and a reminder of how photography used to be a bit more of a hands-on adventure. Keep those great memories coming.
All right, number 12 is the party line phones. Your neighbors heard everything, including your gossip. You could get on the phone and just get real quiet. You can actually hear what your neighbors are talking about. I went to Mexico, and most of the phones there were party line. You get on it, and you could hear all kind of people talking in Mexico. And you just get in there and just say, "Hey, operator, I need this." So you had to yell in the phone because there's all you could hear all kind of people talking on the phone in Mexico. But I really enjoyed the party line because I could hear what was my neighbors were talking about. Can you talk about the party line phones, Kevin?
Absolutely, Billy Boy. The party line phones were a whole different world of eavesdropping and shared conversations. It was like having a built-in neighborhood chat line right there on your phone. You pick up the receiver and sometimes hear your neighbors in the middle of a conversation. And if you were really quiet, you could catch all the local gossip. It was a bit like a community bulletin board over the phone line. And you're right, sometimes you had to yell a bit to get the operator's attention or to let folks know you needed the line. It was a funny mix of convenience and total lack of privacy. And it definitely made for some interesting moments. And I can hear Kevin adding, absolutely, Billy Boy. Those party lines were like a social network before the internet. Everyone was a little more connected, maybe a little too connected because you never knew who might be listening in. It was a whole different kind of chat experience. So it's a great piece of nostalgia and a fun reminder of how people used to stay connected in the old days. Keep those stories coming.
All right, so number 13, car windows you crank by hand. I have a 1998 Toyota Tacoma truck, and I can roll my window down and roll it up. I remember they had a little window, little handle that you could roll the little winglet window in and out and stuff like that. So now everything's push button. And so like these Tesla cars and stuff that go into lakes and whatever, they automatically lock up and you can't, if you was in danger, you can't get out of the car through the window because the window needs to be shattered because everything's automatic. I really enjoy my roll down windows cranking by hand. And sometimes I actually make a little noise like so the people can get used to uh, a motorized sound when I'm raising and lowering my window. But me making that noise is just imitating an electric window when actually you have to roll down the window. Can you talk about the car windows that have to be cranked by hand?
Absolutely, Billy Boy. Those good old manual window cranks were a whole different kind of driving experience. There's something satisfying about just reaching down and rolling the window down yourself, feeling that little handle turn and hearing that quiet whir as the glass moves. And those little wing windows that you can angle in or out for a bit of ventilation were just the icing on the cake. They gave you a bit of control over the breeze without any buttons and electronics involved. And I love that you had your own sound effects to keep things lively. It's a fun way to bring a bit of personality to the old school crank windows. And Kevin might chime in with a grin. Absolutely, Billy Boy. Those crank windows were a simple, reliable piece of car tech. No worries about a motor failing or a window getting stuck. Just a good old-fashioned handle and a bit of elbow grace. So it's a great piece of nostalgia and a reminder of how some of those simple mechanical touches had their own charm. Keep those stories coming.
All right, number 14, we talked about this a little bit, but TV programming that ended at midnight. After the anthem, static, and show's over. Can you go ahead and talk about what happened at midnight on TV sets?
Absolutely, Billy Boy. It's a bit of a blast from the past to think about how TV used to have a bedtime. Once that final show wrapped up, they played the national anthem or a sign-off message, and then that was it. Just static or a test pattern on the screen until the station came back on the air in the morning. It was like the TV world had a closing time, and once the clock hit midnight, everyone knew it was time to head to bed or find something else to do. It was a built-in pause in the May, a reminder that even the TV station needed a break. And Tevin might chime in with a smile. Absolutely, Gully Boy. It was a whole different rhythm of life. The TV signing off was like a gentle nudge that the day was done. No endless scrolling or binge watching, just a bit of static and then off to bed. It was a simple time, and in a way, it gave everyone a chance to reset for the next day. So it's a lovely piece of nostalgia and a reminder of how the world used to have a bit more of a natural pause. Keep those memories coming.
And number 15, we're talking about real maps. If you wanted to go someplace, you'd actually go to the gas station and you'd get these maps or these almanacs that had all the stuff in these little booklets and stuff like that. And you'd unfold it once, but once you unfolded it, you can never fold it back together again. But I remember having these little manuals that had all the different states and streets and stuff. It wasn't on no screen or nothing like that. You had to actually look at it and the Thompson Guide. That's what it was. It's called a Thompson Guide, and it would show you where to go. They don't use that. They're all dependent on GPS. Can you talk about real maps and Thompson guides versus GPS today, Kevin?
Absolutely, Billy Boy. And those real maps and Thomas guides were like the ultimate navigation tools before GPS came along. You walk into a gas station, grab one of those big fold-out maps or a trusty Thomas guide, and then you have to plot out your own route. And yeah, once you unfolded one of those maps, it was always a bit of a puzzle trying to fold it back up again. But there was something really hands-on and adventurous about it. You had to know your north from your south and really pay attention to street names and landmarks. And I can just imagine Kevin editing. Absolutely, Billy Boy. Those maps made you the navigator. You had to be your own GPS, figure out your timings, and maybe even pull over and double check your route. It was a whole different kind of travel experience. Nowadays, we just listen to a voice telling us where to turn, but back then, you were the one in charge of the journey. So it's a fantastic bit of nostalgia and a reminder of how travel used to be a bit more of a hands-on adventure. Keep those memories rolling.
I hate sometimes this GPS. Sometimes they're wrong, and they'll take and I'll listen to where they say, and they loop me in a circle. I'll go around the block, and they'll tell me to make the right turn, and then they'll tell me to take another right turn, and I'm just going around and around in a circle. I hate that. But we got self-driving taxis that are all on GPS. They call them Waymos and stuff. I'm just kind of scared about that because those systems could get hacked in and everything could just be really catastrophic. What do you think about that, uh, Kevin?
Absolutely, Billy Boy. There's definitely a bit of a trade-off when it comes to these modern conveniences. GPS is super handy, but you're right. It can sometimes send you on a wild goose chase or get you stuck in a loop. And those self-driving taxis and Waymo cars are definitely amazing tech, but they do come with their own set of worries. The idea of a car driving itself is both exciting and a little bit nerve-wracking, especially when you think about the potential for glitches or even hacking. It's a whole new world of possibilities and challenges. And I can hear Kevin chiming in. Absolutely, Billy Boy. It's a brave new world with these self-driving cars and GPS systems. They can be super convenient, but they also remind us how important it is to keep a bit of that old school know-how. Sometimes it's good to have a remap or just trust your instincts and not rely entirely on the tech. So it's a good reminder that while new technology is amazing, there's still value in knowing how to navigate the old-fashioned way. Keep those memories coming.
All right, so number 16, candy for a penny. I remember going into the gas station or into a candy store, and lots of the candy was only for a penny. And if you had a nickel, you felt like a millionaire. You can't get nothing like that nowadays. It says, go ahead and read your part where it says Gen Z pays.
Absolutely, Billy Boy. So Kevin would jump in and say, Gen Z pays $6 for artisanal water, and back in your day, a penny could get you a sweet treat. Times have definitely changed. And it's true, those were the days when a single penny felt like it could buy you a little slice of happiness. You'd walk into a candy store, see all those jars of sweets, and know that just a few pennies could fill your pockets with candy. It was a simple pleasure, but it felt like a big deal. Nowadays, prices have gone way up, and a penny candy is a rare find. If you could find it at all, it's a lovely piece of nostalgia and a reminder of how those small joys made such a big impression. Keep those memories coming.
Yeah, they say they don't even make a penny. They say to make a penny, it costs 3 cents. Is that true?
Yeah, you've actually got that right. It's one of those funny little ironies of modern currency. It does cost more to make a penny than the penny is actually worth, around 2 to 3 cents per penny, depending on the year and the cost of materials. It's a bit like a tiny historical relic that's still hanging around, even though it doesn't really make economic sense anymore. But people get attached to their pennies, and it's got a lot of history behind it, so it's still with us for now. It's a neat little fact and a reminder of how some things stick around just out of tradition. Keep those interesting tidbits coming.
Number 17, searching the TV guide for what's on. And if you missed the episode, too bad. Now, I used to get my behind beat by my dad because he couldn't find the TV guide. Everything was in the TV guide, and he had to have that TV guide on the arm on his armchair every day. If he sat down and the TV guide wasn't on his armchair or on his TV tray, he would take and throw everything all around and beat all of us because of that. So if he could not find that TV guide, we got beat. And that's one thing I remember about the TV guide. But everything, it seemed like everything in the world was in the TV guide. You remember those days on having the TV guide, it would tell you everything that would be coming up on the TV? Go ahead, Kevin.
Absolutely, Billy Boy. The TV Guide was basically the holy grail of TV watching back in the day. It was this little magazine that held the schedule for every channel, every show. And if you lost it, well, it was like losing a map to the TV universe. I can imagine how important it must have been for your dad to have that TV Guide right in his place. If it wasn't there, it was like the whole evening's viewing plan was thrown into chaos. And yeah, everything you needed to know about what was coming on TV was in that guide. No on-screen menus, no streaming libraries, just that little book telling you what was on and when. So Kevin might say, absolutely, Billy Board, the TV guy was like the TV watcher's Bible. If you wanted to know what was on, you had to have it. And if you missed your show, well, that was just tough luck. You'd have to wait for a rerun because there was no recording it or watching it on demand. It's a great piece of nostalgia and a reminder of how much the way we watch TV has changed. Keep those stories coming.
And in the black community, we had another little book almost as big as
I'm
it's.
sorry, but you've hit the daily limit for advanced voice.
Oh, okay. So I hit the advanced limit. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish off number 18, using whiteout for mistakes. The smell alone could knock you out. It was a little bottle and it had white fluid in there, and you would take, and some people would just paint that all over when you're typing so that they could smell that and it get you intoxicated. Number 19, test patterns on TV. Bright colors, loud tones warning your world was asleep. And 20, roller skate keys. I used to covet my roller skate key. You'd wore the key around your neck to tighten your skates, and you would also use it to take, and they had little metal clips that you could take and spread out or bring in to tighten your toe and your heel. And if you lost your key, you couldn't get out of your skate. So my skates were, I had like metal wheels on it, and I used to skate all over the place until they decided to start skating inside. So, from ice blocks to party lines to the sweet glory of a penny candy store, life moves slower, heavier, and maybe a little sweeter. But one thing hasn't changed. People still love a good story. Kevin would say, and a good host, Billy Boy, you carried this list like the ice cream man carried a summer block, strong and smooth. So, to everyone watching around the world, smash that subscribe button, drop your favorite old school memory, and tell Gen Z what they miss. That's it. What's up, show? What's up? What's up? What's up? See you next time now. What's up?